What is going on, guys? EGM coming at you with a brand new video, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys my predictions for the real biggest boxing match of 2017 and arguably of the past decade between boxing's cash cow Saul Canelo Alvarez and the Kazakhstan killer Gennady Triple G Golovkin. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now let's start off with Saul Canelo Alvarez. Now, outside of Floyd Mayweather, or after Floyd Mayweather retired, Canelo Alvarez is now boxing's cash cow. He's the biggest name in boxing as we speak. Canelo currently has a record of 49 wins, 1 loss, the only blemish on his record coming to one of the best boxers of all time in Floyd Mayweather. He's competed in the welterweight, light middleweight, and middleweight divisions. He is a 3-time champion in 2 different weight classes. Now, he's still rather young, but he's very accomplished in the sport of boxing. He's only 27 years old, but he's been boxing professionally ever since he was 15 years old, so he has quite a bit of experience. He stepped in there with some big names. He won the WBC light middleweight championship belt against Shane Mosley. He then defended that same belt against Josecito Lopez. He stepped in there with young talent like Austin Trout. He stepped inside the ring with Erislandy Lara. As I mentioned earlier, Floyd Mayweather, Alfredo Angulo, Miguel Cotto. So he's definitely experienced, and he's definitely among not just the Mexican public's favorites, but among the boxing world's favorites. Any boxing fan loves Saul Canelo Alvarez because of his style, because he's so complete as a fighter. And one thing that makes him special is that he really does pride himself on putting on a performance for the fans. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, the only blemish on Saul Canelo Alvarez's record is against Floyd Mayweather because of Floyd Mayweather's defensive abilities, because he's so hard to hit. But he was very young in that fight. He was only 22 years old. He had some trouble with another fighter, Erislandy Lara, who used a similar tactic as Floyd Mayweather. Used the stick and move tactic, was jabbing the Canelo Alvarez up and just trying to box Canelo from the outside and really try to take advantage of the distance inside the ring to neutralize Canelo Alvarez's counter-punching ability. Now, outside of the Floyd Mayweather fight, this is one of the few fights where we actually saw Canelo struggle or frustrated by a fighter, and it was very close to losing. It was a close split decision victory for Canelo Alvarez. I actually thought that Erislandy Lara did enough to win the fight or squeak out the decision. I wasn't upset at the decision, however, though it was a very close fight. But outside of a handful of fights, Canelo Alvarez has done nothing but improve since the Floyd Mayweather fight. And like I said, he's been one of the fan favorites, but recently his reputation has taken a small hit in the eye of the boxing public because of his decisions to fight, weaker competition. If you look at the fight with Amir Khan, who is a true welterweight, I believe he competes in the 147-pound division. Canelo competes at the 154-pound division usually. So, although some people were impressed that Canelo knocked out Amir Khan in the fashion that he did, which it was a brutal knockout, I wasn't that impressed because Amir Khan had the tools to really challenge Canelo, but he wasn't able to because we all know that he has a glass chin. And we all knew that once Canelo landed that power punch, it was going to hurt Amir Khan because he was the smart fighter. So he took the fight with a smaller fighter in Amir Khan. He then moved back to middleweight to fight Liam Smith, who many people didn't know. Liam Smith was able to land a few clean shots on Canelo, but Canelo just went straight to work on that body. I think he knocked Liam Smith down 3 times through body shots. Eventually, the fight was stopped by a body shot TKO. But in his most recent fight against Julio Cesar Chavez, it was a complete mismatch. There was really questions as to why this fight was made when everybody knew that Canelo was the way better fighter than Julio Cesar Chavez. So people were really starting to question whether or not Canelo Alvarez was really serious in taking this fight, this long anticipated match with Gennady Golovkin. Last May, after the Cotto fight, Canelo and Gennady Golovkin's camps were actually in talks to set up a fight. Those were the original plans, that the winner of Canelo and Cotto would face Gennady Golovkin. So like I said, the 2 camps were in talks. Eventually the contract talks stalled. Canelo then vacated his belt, meaning he gave up his WBC middleweight championship. Eventually it was awarded to Gennady Golovkin. So due to the fact that he actually vacated his belt, and also due to the fact that he was taking fights against weaker competition, it really was a cause for concern and really made us as boxing fans question whether or not Canelo Alvarez was a true champion and whether or not he really wanted to test himself against the cream of the crop. But at the end of the day, I think he was just taking a more business-like approach to the fight game. I think he was being really smart with his fight picks. Julio Cesar Chavez, even though he's not a skilled boxer, he's still a big name. Amir Khan, even though it was a complete mismatch due to the size difference, Amir Khan is still a big name, so it did bring in a lot of money when these fights were made. So although a lot of people like to speculate that Canelo was ducking Gennady Golovkin, I don't think that was the case. I think that he was just waiting for the right time, for the peak of public anticipation for this fight, and now it's made. Now he's going up against Gennady Triple G Golovkin, arguably the scariest middleweight in the entire world. Triple G currently has a record of 37 wins, 0 losses. 33 of his wins come by knockout. He is currently the WBC, the IBF, the WBA, and the IBO middleweight champion. Throughout his career, he's dismantled some veterans like Daniel Gil, Marco Antonio Rubio. He's also beaten some other vets like Gabe Rosado and Martin Murray. I mean, I know that these aren't some of the biggest names in boxing. These aren't high-profile wins on his resume, especially when some of his recent wins are made up of guys like Willie Monroe Jr., Dominic Wade, names that the public aren't really too familiar with. So I can see why the only knock on Triple G is, he hadn't really faced any high-level opponents. So in earlier talks when the fight was going to be made a few years ago, because this fight's been anticipated for about 2 years now, so earlier they weren't too sure how he would fare with a fighter of Canelo's caliber if he had never stepped in there with anyone near as good of a fighter as Canelo was and is. But at the same time, you have to take into consideration that a lot of Gennady Golovkin's former opponents were his mandatories. He defended his belt, I believe, 11 times. So he wasn't jumping around from weight class to weight class trying to make money. He was defending his belt against mandatory title challengers. And you also got to think about the fact that a lot of people were scared to step inside the same ring as Triple G because of his power, because he was just an absolute monster, destroying everybody. I believe he was actually on a knockout streak of 23 fights where he knocked out his opponents. So a lot of people were actually scared to step into the ring with him, and rightfully so. Now he finally got a big fight against a big name opponent in Kell Brook, who was an undefeated champion. I believe he was 36-0 at the time. Had a record of 36-0. He was undefeated, and he was the IBF welterweight champion, but he was a welterweight. He was a smaller fighter. And that was actually the first time where we actually saw a few holes in Gennady Golovkin's game. I mean, Kell Brook's speed and his counter punching was really frustrating Gennady Golovkin in the early rounds. He landed a few clean, solid shots to the chin of Gennady Golovkin, and he just ate him up. Eventually, Gennady Golovkin got the finish. He landed a few clean blows to the face of Kell Brook. Eventually, he hurt his eye badly. Kell Brook's corner decided they had seen too much, threw the towel in, the fight was stopped. Triple G won the fight via TKO in the 5th round. So it was the same result that many people expected. They expected him to finish Kell Brook, but many people didn't expect for Kell Brook to have the type of success that he did. So now his recent fight, the fight after Kell Brook, his most recent fight was against a world-class middleweight champion in Danny Jacobs. Now this was for sure going to be the biggest, toughest fight for Gennady Golovkin, because Danny Jacobs has power. He's fast. Not only that, but he's bigger than Gennady Golovkin. Now in that fight, I believe Jacobs outweighed Golovkin on fight night by about 10 pounds. And man, had we seen Triple G tested like we have never seen him before. It was a very entertaining fight. Triple G landed a knockdown early, but Danny Jacobs wasn't too hurt by it. The fight proceeded, man. It was a close fight. Now Golovkin is very used to just being able to stalk his opponent down and land power punch after power punch, but Danny Jacobs was doing a good job utilizing his footwork, his speed advantage. His hands were very fast. He was counter punching Gennady Golovkin. Every time Golovkin tried to get on the inside, Jacobs was landing combinations, and he was really keeping Triple G honest. So it was in that fight that really proved that speed is the way to give Triple G fits. And like I said, it was a very close fight. It was a unanimous decision victory that was awarded to Triple G, allowing him to keep his undefeated record. But his streak of 23 straight knockouts or 23 straight finishes ended. Now I do think it was a very close fight. It was very hard to score because there were plenty of close rounds, but I did end up giving the fight to Triple G, and I think the knockdown in that 10-8 round was the determining factor in giving the decision to Gennady Golovkin. But now he's on to his current matchup, Saul Canelo Alvarez. I mean, like I said earlier, the last time Canelo Alvarez lost was to Floyd Mayweather. Some people think he lost to Erislandy Lara, but they gave him the split decision in that fight. But ever since that fight against Floyd Mayweather, he's done nothing but improve. I mean, his counter-punching ability is ridiculous. He has power in his hands. He's extremely fast. His defense has improved so much, as well as his footwork, his head movement. So we're getting to a point in Canelo Alvarez's career where there's really nothing that he can do, and it makes it very dangerous for a guy like Triple G, who in his past 2 fights hasn't looked as good as he did 2 years ago. But this is definitely the biggest matchup of 2017. Forget about the Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fight. That was just hype. That was just for entertainment. This is a fight, and there's a lot more than title belts on the line for this fight. This is a fight that determines your legacy. This is a fight that has the potential to name either Triple G or Canelo Alvarez as the best fighter or the best boxer in the world. Now, both these fighters present to each other the biggest challenge for one another. Not just necessarily the biggest challenge, but the biggest threat. Now, we're going to start off with Canelo Alvarez. If he wants to win, he's going to have to allow Gennady Golovkin to come to him, and that's not going to be too hard because naturally Triple G is aggressive, so he's going to have to utilize his speed advantage, and I think he's going to have to work the body early. He's going to have to break Gennady Golovkin down, take him into the later rounds, and just use his speed advantage. Just not allow Golovkin to cut the ring off and pin you up against the ropes. And I think on paper, Canelo Alvarez should be the favorite in this fight because of his skill set, because he's a much more skilled fighter than Gennady Golovkin, and I think we can all agree on that. But Gennady Golovkin is no slouch. Gennady Golovkin has tremendous power in his hands, and like I said, he's very aggressive, but he's not reckless. He picks his shots. He's very accurate with his punches, and one thing that he truly is a master at is cutting the ring off. Now, if you look at Danny Jacobs, who gave Golovkin his toughest fight, and if you look at Erislandy Lara, Austin Trout, Floyd Mayweather, who gave Canelo Alvarez some fits and gave him trouble and were his toughest fights, those are fighters that move around. Those are fast fighters that have great footwork, that like to move around, like to stick and move, like to jab and get out the way. They don't like to stand and exchange punches. Now, these two fighters aren't like that. These two fighters are each other's dream matchup, and I say that because Golovkin wants his opponents to stay on the rope. He wants to get his opponents on the rope and just go haywire on him. He wants to land big shot after big shot, whereas Canelo, as I said earlier, he wants you to come to him and he wants to make you miss and counter you, and he wants to hurt you that way. So I think these two styles really do complement each other, and it's gonna make for fireworks. This is, in my opinion, the biggest fight in the past decade, and there's been some big matchups like Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather, all the fights between Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez, and also the rematch between Antonio Margarito and Miguel Cotto. Now, these are very highly anticipated fights, but I think this one takes the cake. Like I continue to say, it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be amazing to watch. Both fighters have an equal chance of winning, and it's a very tough fight to pick. But like I said earlier, Canelo Alvarez is the safe pick. If you're going to bet money, I think the safest bet would be on Canelo Alvarez, because you know what he's bringing. You know that he's been consistent. Even though he's been facing inferior opponents, he's been consistent, and he's continued to prove that he's improving. Whereas Golovkin's already 35, Canelo's 27, entering the prime of his career. Golovkin's 35, and he seems to have slowed down. Now, obviously, Kell Brook and Danny Jacobs are much more different fighters than Canelo Alvarez, and much more different styles than Canelo is for Gennady Golovkin. So it's going to be interesting to see if he indeed has lost a step or if he's still the same. But with all that being said, I'm going to go with Gennady Golovkin in this fight, and I do think that Golovkin knocks Canelo down in the first 5 rounds. I think he knocks Canelo down. I think Canelo gets back up, roars back, and baits Triple G into thinking that he's hurt, and then he's gonna land a few clean counter shots. But I just think that Golovkin, he's been waiting to get his crack at Canelo Alvarez for about 2 years now, so I think he has a chip on his shoulder. I think he's ready to prove to everybody that this is where he belongs, and these are the type of fights that he deserves. Now, I just think that Golovkin's power is going to be too much. Now, Canelo's going into this fight knowing that Golovkin has tremendous power, but I think it's very different to study it and see it on film and see it on tape than actually going out there and feeling that type of power. So once he feels that first significant punch, I think it's going to surprise Canelo. I think it's going to catch him off guard, even though he thinks that he's been preparing for it. And I just think that Golovkin is going to get Canelo against the ropes, and Canelo's going to think, hey, this is where I want him. This is where I'm going to be able to counter punch him because I'm faster, because my footwork is better, my defense is better. But Golovkin is going to work to the body. He's going to throw a few combinations, a few uppercuts, because he's very, even though you think that Golovkin is a one-dimensional fighter, that all he throws is straights and hooks, no, he's very creative with his combinations. He likes to throw the uppercuts. He likes to throw over. He makes sure to mix it up, and I think he's going to keep Canelo on his toes. I think he's going to keep Canelo guessing, and I don't think that Canelo is going to have the same success against the ropes and counterpunching against other fighters like Liam Smith, against Triple G. I think Triple G's power and his size is going to be too much for Canelo. I do see this being a majority decision, though. I see one judge seeing it as a draw and the other two giving it to Golovkin. I do see Triple G coming away with the decision victory. But I think aside the result, I think the hope from the boxing fans and the boxing world is that this is the type of fight that will produce a trilogy even more, because we've been waiting to see two fighters this equally matched go at it. And I think it'll be a shame if the fight isn't as close as many people expect it to be. But I do think it's going to be fireworks, and I do think it's going to be Gennady Golovkin that comes away with his hand raised. Now, if you like these predictions, make sure you like, subscribe, share the video, comment down your predictions for this fight this Saturday. And if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate those who do watch. I just want to apologize for not being able to upload as consistently or on time. I've been having a lot of issues with my Wi-Fi. I'm trying to get it resolved. Still haven't been able to do so. So I'm sorry for the late upload, but I hope you do enjoy these predictions. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, and make sure to stay tuned for more content.